Right now, if you guys took everything away from me and I had to start from scratch, do you know why I'm going to be a millionaire overnight again? I spent 5 years not owning a single luxury item. And I put everything into investing. And then 5 years later, I moved into a custom built 10,000 square foot mansion on the golf course right outside of Sundance. And for the next 5 years, I was all lifestyle and spending. And I had spent 5 years saving and 5 years spending. And when it was all done, I remember I got to the point where I looked at my whole history and I just said, you know, what's been good, what's been smart, what's been dumb. And I did it by strategy and it felt good. So I need to find an activity that won't pay me $1 million an hour, but pay me $2 million an hour. I actually love speaking the whole game of real estate, investment, finance, speaking to realtors. Like, it's such a powerful game. And I've always been confused. Like, it's such an easy way once you have the skills to make money. Why don't more people do it?
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Light It Up podcast. If you're new to this channel and you want to know everything about making money in real estate, selling, sales skills, building your business, or investing, then subscribe below, tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know what makes our great guests so successful.
And we get calls and emails from people just like you every single day. So whether you're new in the business or looking to grow, we're happy to help.
All right, Kris Krohn, thank you so much for being here, man. We're excited to spend some time with you today.
John, appreciate it. Actually, it's a privilege. I actually love speaking the whole game of real estate, investment, finance, speaking to realtors. Like, it's such a powerful game. And I've always been confused. Like, it's such an easy way once you have the skills to make money. Why don't more people do it? I don't know. It's like one of the mysteries of God.
Yeah,
it is 100%, man.
The more we do these podcasts, the more I realize that you're just, us is like just scratching the surface of what is actually capable with the skills that are there. And it's insane when you're exposed to people like yourself and other people. It's how much deeper you can go with the knowledge you have. So excited to learn some of that today. We'll jump right into the lightning round.
Let's do it. Ready? So we're going to hit you with some questions here, Kris, just to get to know you a little bit better. We call it the lightning round. Tell us, what is something you think everyone should do at least once in their lives?
I think that everyone should buy a jet.
I was just telling the people in our studio that you just, was it a recent purchase?
I've had 2 jets over the last couple of years. Yeah.
I love that.
And you were explaining that, when you charter it out and share it with other people, that it really is not that expensive at the end of the year, relatively.
Oh my gosh, owning a jet's not very expensive, but I've got 40 extra days every year with my family that I wouldn't have if I were flying public. And my biggest advice is don't fly until you're ready, because once you fly private, you will never want to go to a normal airport ever again.
I can only imagine. What important truth do very few people agree with you on?
I love debt. I want to have as much debt as I possibly can. I think the more debt, if you know how to use it and arbitrage it, the more wealthy you'll become. If you put $100 million of debt in front of me today and all I had to do is ink my signature once and give you a personal guarantee, I'd do it right now on the spot.
So Dave Ramsey and you are enemies, basically.
I only have one enemy.
Yeah.
It's Dave. That's it. That's the only one. I'm sure he's a good human being, but I hate his philosophy. He makes so many people poor.
Yeah. All right. I guess Kiro wanted to know this one. What's your best scar story?
My best scar story is not appropriate for this show. When I was 16 years old, I had a biking accident, and basically I flipped my bike over and it nailed me in the crotch. And then I woke up the next day and I couldn't urinate. And I had a surgery, tried to fix it. 2 years later, my dad had a roofing company. I'm like 16 years old. It was 104 degrees out. I drank a gallon of water. I got off the roof because I had to piss so bad. When I finally had that moment of release, nothing came out. My bladder was about to burst. I had 200 more cc's in it than a bladder can take. And I'm in the ER basically doing backflips with 4 people holding me down on the gurneys. And the last thing that I remember before they put a shot in my arm was a 12-inch nail, stainless steel nail, that they were going to run through my stomach because they hadn't released my bladder. I was going to die. I woke up in the middle of the night the next morning with a tube coming out my stomach. And when I looked down, I realized what they had done. And I had been circumcised when that wasn't my parents' wish when I was a kid. And it was basically this gnarly, crazy experience. So yeah, I got some cool scars.
You know what's funny and all that? And I was going to skip that question. I was like,
The other scar story that I have is when I was 15 years old, my dad would never put me in martial arts because I got excited about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. My mom had in her knife block this knife that was like 3 feet long, I swear. And I was like, after school, 3 PM, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came on. I was wielding this knife like a sword. And then all of a sudden I thrust it all the way down into my leg, hobbled to the bathroom because I had stuck it in so deep. And when I pulled my shorts down, there was no blood. Took my fingers, pried it open. Oh my gosh. Fainted, woke up, blood everywhere, go to the hospital, 3 layers deep of stitches on that one.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So,
and Kris, you're from Utah, right?
I got more.
I feel like I had a Ninja Turtle sword and it was not nearly as sharp.
Why was your mom letting you play with a 3-foot freaking?
She wasn't. I was trying to show off my younger sister. I was like, hey, look how cool I am. I'm like Leonardo. Dunk.
That could have gone way worse. Thank God it didn't. Wow. What's something that you did as a child that your parents still retell a story about? I feel like that's perfectly one.
My dad, he had a construction company growing up. So that's where I got some familiarity around the game of real estate. Yeah. And I loved helping my dad. So I would work summers with him. And I just believed that I could do anything. And my dad and I were building this deck, and he loves to tell the story. I hate the story, where basically this deck was like a whole story off the ground, and there was this elevated platform like 8 feet from the deck. And I thought that I could jump from the platform onto the deck before the railing went up. And I jumped, I made the leap, I smacked it square in my chest, knocked all the air out of me, fell to the ground. And my dad loves to laugh at me for that story. So yeah, I was a really ambitious kid. I thought I could do things that I couldn't.
Wow. Love it. Who's the worst boss you've ever had and why?
I never had a job, so probably me.
Okay.
Yeah, like my people hate me, but like 6 years ago, I hired someone to start operating my company, and then I started building an empire of companies, and I hired people to run all of them. Before then, I was the one running my company, and behind my back, I know that nobody liked me. Like, I was a great creator. I was an awful implementer, like manager. And I'm super OCD, and I'm like, it must be done this way, and everyone do it this way. And people behind my back didn't like me. So I'm probably the worst boss I know.
Well, that's the power, which we'll go into later about delegation. Last question for lightning round. If you could spend a day with someone either dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Shoot. Hands down, I'd spend a day with Jesus. But after he was resurrected and came back, I'm like, I want to hear that story.
That would be one for the ages for sure.
What am I talking about? I talk to Jesus all the time. Never mind. I'm taking it back. I want to do, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Mother Teresa would be kind of cool. I would love to pick Elon Musk's brain. Like, I like watching his social media. That duck thinks so backwards. And I bet hanging with him for a day would be a privilege.
Yeah.
You think he's going to fight Mark Zuckerberg?
And win.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
He'll kick his ass.
They say that Zuckerberg, though, makes it seem like Elon is dragging his feet.
I think Zuckerberg has more skills, and I think Elon's got to get in shape, but I know what Elon's going to do. He's going to master like 2 moves, and then he's going to master them so well, and he's just going to wait to deploy one of those 2 moves, and it's game over. So Zuck might have like 100 plays, and Musk's got like 2 or 3, and I think he's going to win.
My money's on Elon for sure. Kris, one thing that in preparation for this, I was so excited is that when you look at what you've done and what you've been able to accomplish, it's almost like you're a mastermind, but I know for a fact it came to fruition this way. But in the core of it, there's the 5 equities of life for you that you could see as your priority. And then you're very intentional with it. How did it get there? Can you tell us a story about when you realized that was an important thing for you to make a priority in your life?
I had no ambition for real estate. My ambition, my dad was a German immigrant and basically said, Kris, get good grades and then go to college, and then you're going to get a job, and then you're going to be taken care of, because all he had was a 3rd grade Germanic education. So he was convinced, he was sold on that. And by the time I got to college, I had to work my butt off to get good enough grades to get into Brigham Young University. I did get in, and I took organic chemistry because I wanted to be a doctor, and it kicked my ass. And then I retook the class. I got a worse grade. And that's when I realized, I want this. I'm not going to get this. This doesn't come natural to me. I need to figure out what's natural to me. And frankly, rather than academia, it's like street smarts was way more natural to me. So that year, while I ditched that my first year of college, I basically found 3 people that had each made over $10 million. ironically enough, all in real estate. I'm like, that's the thing that I'm going to do. So I started just following them around, learning from them. And by the time I graduated college, I I basically had a small portfolio of 25 homes, and they were paying me about $12,000 a month. And I quit
Nice.
my job, and I didn't need to work. And all my buddies were graduating college to go get their job, and I never needed to work again. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I should systematize this, and then turn 25 homes that next year turn into 50, and the year after 100. And that was 6,500 homes ago.
Holy crap, man.
Wow.
That's insane.
Who were those 3 people that you met that were all in real estate? Are they people that
There
we
was
would
this
know?
dude. No, none of them are knowables. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
one of
insane.
one of them was literally a neighbor across the street from the first house that I bought, who like looked like he lived like dressed at Walmart. He didn't look like money. His house was a tiny little home. Like he was wealthy and he had nothing. And
Mm.
so he fascinated me, and I did a lot of deals with him. The next guy was the opposite. Like he was in the process of building a 14,000 square foot house, and he had lost all his money twice. And so learning from him was interesting because he had failed and lost it all, but come back. And so I liked learning from. His name was John Sorensen. And then the third individual was someone that I actually did some pest control with as a college kid for just a little bit, who had made over $10 million. I met him at a community church class,
Mm.
and my wife and I are sitting there, and it's like lesson 5 on like budgeting. And he ends up telling us, he was talking about budgeting, but he sounded like he didn't have a care in the world about money, and he wasn't bragging. And I just knew I needed to talk to him after. He's the first person I met. And he's like, oh yeah, I just got back I've been traveling the world for the last 10 years. I haven't worked. I'm like, what do you mean you haven't worked for the last 10 years, dude? And he said, well, I did this thing called real estate. I had no idea what it meant, but he was the first one where I was like, I don't know what real estate is, but I want that thing.
Yeah.
And so I caught the bug with him, and the other 2 I learned from.
I love that. Now, when you were seeking out these mentors, I know that at least from my perspective, when I'm seeking out mentors, I almost have to feel worthy to get their attention or get proximity to them. How did you overcome that mindset?
I was just a total imposter. Like, no, I just begged. Like I'm amazed at how many people have a path to get what they want. They have a reason for not doing it. I was never that guy. I was just like, I got nothing to offer you. But I thought if I could be the most ambitious, the most excited, the one that they could trust to implement, I thought that might mean something.
Yeah.
And for all 3 of them, it did. Well, I got fired from one of them. One of them, I kind of found out where he lived, and I went to his house at 11 p.m. at night. And this was Yellow Page days, no internet. And I knocked on his door, and I'm like, please teach me real estate. He slammed the door, never talked about it again. So like, I was just never afraid to ask. I knew that I didn't have anything to offer, but I would have like begged. I would have like, tell me what you want me to do, and done. It's a deal. Like I'll do it. So that's kind of the way that my personality is.
Love that. John makes fun of me because I'm the same exact way. I've sent my current coach gifts baskets to his house, blending machines. When I found out he was sick, I was sending him juicers. Like,
Well, that's how you got him to be your coach.
yeah, well,
He had
obsessively
to,
doing
he
that.
had to he had to lift the restraining order.
Yeah. And eventually agree to take my money and coach me. Now, so you got the proximity to these mentors almost, and then now they exposed you to this world of real estate.
Yes.
Now, once you're exposed to real estate, I guess one of the poisons of real estate is people get addicted to the way that it makes, like how much money you can make in it, and they neglect
Yep.
everything else in their life. They'll neglect their personal life, their faith, everything else. How did that look like for you, or was it always balanced?
No, it wasn't always balanced. I also believe in mastery. And mastery, Malcolm Gladwell says it's going to take 10,000 hours. And I always tell people there's 4 things that you should master in your lifetime. You should master money. You should master love. You should master health, and you should master spirituality. And if you achieve all 4 masteries, then you're going to be a balanced human being.
Mhm.
And according to Malcolm Gladwell hours, I've mastered 32 different things, but those are the 4 basics that I think everyone's got to have in their life. And I put money first. I didn't develop them all simultaneously. Being 26 and having just made that my life, though, like I was ready to start stepping into some new things after that. But I would say that money kind of had a grip on like dominating my time for probably a decade.
Mm.
There was a decade, it wasn't until probably my mid 30s before I was like, okay, wait a second. Like I got to stop and figure out how to live my most ideal life. I had a buddy of mine that had died in this tragic paragliding accident. He's one of the top 100 YouTubers in the world. Grant Thompson was my dear friend. And the day he died was the day I started really rethinking my life and saying, hey, I have had 2 other young buddies my age die this year as well. Kris, like, what if you were next? What if you got hit by that proverbial bus? Like, would you truly be proud of your life, or what's undone? And so I took out a blank piece of paper and I said, I'm going to recreate my entire 168-hour a week schedule from scratch. And what I decided was, I'm going to do social media on Mondays. I'm going to work from home Tuesdays and Thursdays. Wednesday is all day for my wife. Friday is all day for my kids. Saturday is all day for me. Sunday is all day for God. And my morning routine will start at 4 a.m. and will go till 9 a.m. And Monday through Friday, I'll put in 5 hours into myself every single morning. And then the evenings, no one is ever going to get an obligation out of me. It's just for me, friends, and family. And I put that world together, and that was years ago. And I've been reaping the benefits of that. And now my life is in balance. I don't ever work generally more than 25 hours a week. My wife and I spend more than enough time together. Same with me and my family. I've got time for hobbies and friends and play and growth and developing myself. And so the balance of my morning routine that allows me to educate and read books and do my meditations, but also work out really hard at the gym and have family time. There's this balance in those 4 masteries right now where they're all present every single day in beautiful quantities. But no, it took me a while to get there.
Yeah, no, that's so valuable. That's priceless. Do you think that someone can start that way, or they have to have an imbalance to get that,
revelation?
Well, to roll that boulder down the hill, to start it.
Listen, I think that you can achieve it both ways. I'm an obsessive personality. So like, I believe there's power in obsession. Often when people are like, oh yeah, I want to become a real estate investor, I'm going to work on that for 2 hours a week. I'm like, good luck. A decade from now, you're going to be nowhere. You know why? You're not putting in enough juice. So I'm not saying this is the way to be. I'm just a super obsessive personality. When I latch onto something, I usually don't let go until I figured it out.
Yeah.
And so I refuse failure, and I just stick with something until I got it. And so I'm not saying that's the healthiest way, but if you think about the game of momentum, the science of momentum is what you get on your side when you put enough energy into something to get it forward. The game is, how do I obsess without abandoning my faith or my family or those things? And thank God I found a way to do that. But no, the balance is really, really perfect today. And there's no inducement, there's no significance or successful win that I could have that could really take me away from what my balance is today, because that's the ultimate win for me. That's really what my definition of wealth is. It's the biohacking. It's having an anti-aging strategy to be 140 years old. It's having all of the time with my family and loved ones. And then just all the play and the travel and the fun.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. One of the things that's interesting in terms of for real estate agents specifically, and we've been realizing this recently, it's almost like a real estate agent is the kind of person that will go out, work hard as hell to plant seeds, to plant someone else's orchard so that they can reap the benefits of it.
We were just talking with Pace Morby about this.
Yeah, and it hits hard when you think about it, because there's no, you're learning all the skills. You're learning how to communicate with people. You're learning how to hunt the opportunities, because the opportunities is what's important, not the money. How does somebody get out of that addiction of making money in that aspect, being attached to the outcomes and being an investor?
Yeah, I think you have to start by actually starting to look at both the long game. I think that some of the most financially successful people are playing along in a short game. And I got all the love in the world for Pace, and Pace plays along in a short game. He's got a great strategy on this. My wholesaling company allows me to do all of these deals, making 20 grand, 50 grand, 80 grand, 200 grand on just flipping paper. And what that does is, that's the short game, right? That's just pulling in truckloads of money very easily with systems. But on the other hand, buy and hold game is how you make sure that when you're playing the short game, the last thing you want to do is wake up in a decade and be like, I got nothing to show.
Yeah.
I got nothing to show. You buy one home. Like, so for example, I won't touch a deal unless I'm making 25% a year ROI on it. And I usually do 30 to 40. So you take that 25%. And if you just buy one home, drop 50 grand down on a single home, 20 years from now, that's going to compound into $4.3 million. You hit my average ROIs, one home turns into $17.3 million in 20 years. So you plant a seed, you wake up in 20 years, it was totally passive. It took like none of your time, and it got $17 million, right? Everyone should play the long game smart enough to think that way, but we don't. People are dumb. They've put money into 401ks and IRAs thinking that will become something. It doesn't. They ironically put their money in savings. They're scared to be a product of the product. Realtors often do this. It's like, dude, if you sell real estate, you should own real estate. By the way, if you are an investor of real estate, guess what kind of clients you'll attract? Not someone looking for a primary one time in your life transaction. You're going to find entrepreneurs, and you're going to find investors. And you know what investors do? They are like, in my whole game, when I owned my own realty company, we wouldn't work with anyone unless they were an investor.
Right.
unless they were going to buy multiple homes so I can build the relationship once and I can keep harvesting and growing business. But if you don't turn around and take your heavy winnings and prop it into becoming a product of the product, people don't get, like, you're kind of screwing yourself over. You're like 3 inches from gold. You're so close to such a big win. And yet, what are you doing? You're making all this dough. You're having fun living it up, and you're not actually becoming a product of the product.
Yeah.
It's sad when I see it, because a lot of realtors, when I ask, like, who's a real estate investor, the realtors always raise their hand. I'm like, sorry, let me ask again. Raise your hand if you own property that isn't your own home.
Right.
And the hands don't go up. And I'm like, okay, got it. Being a realtor is not an investor. I know that you deal with investors. You're not an investor. Please do not confuse yourself, but become one, like 100%. And if you're that close to the gold and you're not participating, it's strange.
Yeah. No, you said it perfect.
It's so funny because so many people get their license and then they don't have any sales skills, right? So that they can't really produce at a high level. So they have to go out separate from the real estate course and teach themselves the business, the sales skills, how to do more transactions. Now you have to go out and teach yourself the investor skills to actually do something with the money that you're making. It's tough. I think the biggest thing is there's a huge difference between consuming big and thinking big. And so many realtors, I'm guilty of it myself. You know, you make all this money and then you put it into dumb shit, watches and cars and stuff that's flashy and stuff that's not making you any money. And like you said, you wake up in 10 years and you look back and you say, holy shit, I have nothing to show for it.
Yep.
So I think what we're realizing is, you know, proximity to people who are doing this at a high level is super, super important. Tell us a little bit more about your wholesaling business and what you guys are doing.
I want to kind of like zoom out for just a second, because I was way too dumb to become a doctor. Like, I just didn't get chemistry and biology, but statistics was my game. Like, I really love math. And when I took statistics as a weeder class, I was in a class with 200 other kids, and they graded the curve on me. And first time in my life, I never did my homework. I just get math. I love stats. And so when I had these 3 mentors and I started asking them, like, well, what should I do in real estate? They'd be like, oh, you should flip this deal, and then you should wholesale this deal, and then you should, do some apartment complexes, and then you should buy this commercial thing. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like, all these strategies, I can't master any of them. I should master one. What's best? And they said, well, that's an unfair question. You can't actually answer the question of what is best unless we understand your bias. And I said, well, what do you mean bias? They said, well, what do you prefer? Like, you might say, I like the strategy that makes the most money, but then inversely, it's the most risky. Mm-hmm. So you better be good with risk if you're comfortable with profits. So I was like, okay, I got you. So I came back to him a week later with an algorithm. And I said, okay, here's my analysis. Here are the 6 things I value. I want to select a strategy that takes the least time, the least effort, the least risk, makes the most money, works in up and down markets, and provides a service. So I said, those are my 6 criteria. And based on that, I put the top 30 strategies in, and 2 things popped out. For the long game, I started learning that if you do short-term, like 5-year holds on single-family homes in the top markets around the country, you can get those ROIs to perform long-term at the highest rate. And then I also learned that wholesaling, hands down, also met the 6 criteria for the other game, which is the pay me money now. So I've done thousands of flips and I've done thousands of holds, and I play these 2 strategies based on what will take the least time, effort, risk, make the most money, working up and down markets, and provide the most service. And so those are the 2 games that I play. I don't play any other games. And that's because I believe that the 3 most important letters are ROI. And that means that when I'm doing a buy and hold deal, people will get stuck on, oh, well, like, where's it located? Location. Or they're like, well, is this a lease option or a rental? And I'm like, you know what? None of that care. None of that matters. I'm like, well, what do you mean none of that matters? Like, they get caught up in strategy. I said, there's something that trumps strategy, and it's ROI. And so the return on investment is what we should become obsessed with. If I look at one property, my ROI is 25%, and another property is 40%, which deal should I do?
Yeah.
The higher 100%. ROI. The higher ROI. So that's the way that I approach buy and hold. But wholesaling, I then have to turn around and value my time. So I've partnered up with Carlos Reyes.
Yeah.
Carlos has a really great pace. Actually went through Carlos Reyes years ago in his game, like Ryan Panetta and a number of others. And Carlos has built a lot of automation and systems around wholesaling. So instead of dialing for dollars, he employs people out of country to dial for dollars for you and qualify deals. He uses a lot of data. He does a lot of paper traffic. He's been a really excellent business partner for me. So My students, when they come and work with me, I basically say, hey, Carlos and I have a system for wholesaling, and it's really built around automation because the ROI is not on money, it's on time.
Yeah.
And then when it's buy and hold and it's passive, then the ROI is actually on the performance of money. And so those are the two things that we gauge as investors of those two different quadrants.
Love that. The one of my buddies, we were talking about getting out of the rat race of real estate, and he was telling me one thing that was interesting.
Real estate sales.
Real estate sales, yeah.
Yeah.
And the addiction of being an agent. And we were also reading a book by John Maxwell, and one of the things that was very interesting, or was like a light bulb that turned on, was the power of influence and leadership, right? And when the only way to get out of the sales side of it is by delegating, right? Because you can't cut it off, because then you'll be broke, right? And you can't just replace it, because then you're gonna have to go through that learning curve again. So you need to learn how to delegate very, very well at a high level and find the right people for those seats. Now, go ahead, sir.
I was just going to comment. It reminds me about my buddy Jimmy Rex. In Utah, Jimmy Rex was like rookie of the year all those years ago. Built this huge, team, and his advice was always go find a great mentor that's crushing it, that can teach you sales and all that. And this last year, he basically handed off his business to my other buddy Tyler Bennett, that's done a couple billion in real estate with me, and now he just runs masterminds. And for him, it's the game of leadership and influence, and that's how he exited the selling game of real estate.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like you learn all these psychology things to sell people, but then you realize that the influence part of it, of being able to lead people and get the right attractors, seeing what you've done is insane. You've built a massive channel, right? And massive platform. So you have an endless supply of people coming in, resumes coming in, and then you're able to create these machines by putting the right people in those right seats. So you're just basically a connector.
Yeah.
Now, how did that get there?
When my YouTube channel took off, I had for years developed a partnering model that basically said, hey, I've got all this experience as an investor. I'm going to go find people with money. And if they'll bring the money and we'll form like a 50-50, LLC partnership together, I will do 100% of the work, and then we'll just split the profits. And people loved it. And I did that with thousands of people. When YouTube started taking off, my social media, right now it's like 5, 7, 10 million views collectively every week on all my channels. And it's a game of leadership and influence. And it's really kind of what's happening right here, right? And so people will they'll find me, they'll decide if they like me or hate me. And if they like me, then they'll follow. If they follow, at some point, they're going to binge me. When they're done binging me, eventually they're going to get to a call to action that says, hey, did you know that you can partner with Kris Krohn? I heard about it. I'm going to click that link in bio. And so every day I have people that stream in saying, Kris, I want to partner with you. And what I do is we become 50-50 partners, and they put up the money from like a 401k or an IRA. I have a team of 200 experts that do all of the transacting, and all I do is put it together, and I spend less than an hour a month. I spend less than an hour a month managing any of the fulfillment of real estate. I spend 3 hours a week on Monday afternoon doing social media. So really the game of influence that you're talking about is 100% how I'm not actually in that game, but reaping all of the benefit of being in the game. I just had a partner reach out to me on 10 homes we bought. He's like, hey, Kris, I'd like to buy you out. He's writing me a check for $310,000. I've probably put maybe an hour into that deal. So you could say, okay, that hour was worth $310,000.
I love that. That's insane. And then you also are very, being a math nerd yourself, you like to calculate your hourly worth nonstop, and what's worth your time, not what's worth your time.
It's not just understanding that value. It's more than that. So I have a game every year, and every year I play a game called Double My Value. And so what that looks like is, when I'm a real estate investor, I'm on average worth $1 million an hour. When I am an influencer selling, products, I'm worth about $20,000 an hour. When I'm creating marketing videos for webinars, I'm worth about $30,000 an hour. So we'll just take those three activities. This is $20,000 an hour. This is $30,000 an hour. This one's $1 million an hour. So I have these three activities that I do. And so I play a game that basically says, I know what my time is worth on those three activities. For 2024, I'm looking for an activity that will take my highest value, $1 million an hour, and pay me double that. So I need to find an activity that won't pay me $1 million an hour, but pay me $2 million an hour. And I need to find another activity to replace my webinar game that doesn't value me at $30,000 an hour, but $60,000 an hour. And I need to find someone over here on my $20,000 an hour stuff that will value me at $40,000 an hour. So my job is to basically correct my standards and raise them, and then keep my eyes out and basically say, my world, like yours, is filled with opportunity. And how do people know when to say yes or no? Well, now I have a gauge. Someone called me up and said, hey, Kris, I want you to mentor me for free. I don't have any money for you, but I want you to fly on your private jet to me and then spend 90 days living on my couch teaching me. And I ask myself, what's that worth? Well, it's worth nothing.
Yeah.
If my heart intuition opens up and says there's a reality TV show, I'm going to say yes. But more than likely, I'm going to like, hey, you're like a lot of the people out there that just want to leech and ask for something for nothing.
Sure.
I'm going to say no. Why? Because I know what I'm trying to get my dollar per hour to be worth, and it doesn't match that. Another opportunity comes along and says, hey, Kris, your consult for equity company, we want to do a merger with another company, and it's going to quadruple the valuation of it. And in hindsight, your time value is going to be worth about $3 million an hour. So I say, let's compare that to my goal. I'm at $1 million an hour on this activity. I'm trying to find something at 2. This one's at 3. Now I know to say what?
Yes.
I'm going to say yes. So when you have standards, then saying yes and no is very easy to do. And my goal every year is to double my standards. The only way that I can double my standards, however, every year is if I'm also a master at delegation and handing activities off to others. Because if I don't hand something off and I keep saying yes to new things, I will have more money, but I will lose the balance of my life.
Yeah.
Remember, I only work 25 hours a week. So if I keep saying yes to like, but Kris is $3 million an hour. Kris, it's $100,000 an hour. Kris, it's $50,000 an hour. Kris, that keynote is $100,000 and you're going to be in and out in half a day. If I live my life that way, my work time will do this.
Yeah.
And it'll expand. And the rest of my balance of my life will go down. And this is what people do. They don't value their time. They value money. But when you know the arbitrage between time and money, you can say, okay, cool. Here's my goals. Unless it's this new thing double than my previous high, I'm not saying yes. It doesn't mean though that I have to say no. It can also mean that I delegate somebody else.
Yeah.
So I have loads of opportunities where someone's like, hey, Kris, do this thing with me and it'll pay you $8,000 an hour. I'm like, that is not worth $8,000 an hour to me. But I have this employee over here that I'm paying $300 an hour that is more than competent and capable of fulfilling it. And I would like to arbitrage that $7,700 an hour by saying yes. It's just not me. It's going to be them. And they say yes. Guess what? I'm growing my wealth, but I'm not putting in my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
I love that philosophy. Now, for agents who are stuck in their mindset of producing as an agent, what's a good blueprint or rules that they should follow to up their standards to get out of that?
I think that it all comes down to what are you going to do with your winnings? So I'm going to call this the doctor mistake. I'm a doctor. I make $280,000 a year. And because my income is super reliable, people are always going to get sick and that money's going to be there. It's not like there's a downturn in the economy next year and my salary is going to get cut. If anything, I'm going to make more money. So what they do is they figure out, doctors do this. They learn how to create a lifestyle around the money that they make and they don't invest. And it's much more fun, just like you're talking about for realtors, to say, if I'm a high producer, I can live that flashy life. And so they basically play a game that says my lifestyle, my income and my lifestyle will equate to each other. I think that's the dumbest financial thing that anyone can ever do. Yep. The most important thing you want to do in the least when you are a below average producer, 20% of what you make, every dollar from 5 needs to be set aside for investing. Now, when you're a producer and you're making not 50 grand a year, which is that average salary coming out of college, but 100 grand a year, 20% would be 20 grand. But if you can, for 5 years, instead of upgrading your lifestyle, upgrade your investments, exactly. I would say live off of your $40,000 a year. And if you're making 100, maybe you raise your lifestyle from 40 to 50, but from 50 to 100, take that 50,000 instead of 20%. And you have 50% going towards investing. And it's like, but Kris, there's so many cool things I could buy and trips I could take and bling I could wear if I had that $50,000. I'm like, I get it, but just, I want you to play with me a game called 5 years of delayed gratification as a strategy, not as a fear-based mindset. It's not scarcity, it's strategy. And what you're going to do is the next year, you're going to increase your productivity. You're like, dude, the next year I made $130,000. My life's still only $50,000. I just saved $80,000. Let's negate taxes for just a moment.
Yeah.
4 years later, you're making $310,000. Maybe your lifestyle went from $50,000 to $70,000. Anyone's going to call you crazy, but all I see is a smart person taking the majority of their winnings. And if you slam enough of it into your investments, it doesn't always have to be long-term real estate because that stuff can pay out too long. You can put your money also towards humans that grow your business and reclaim your time. Yeah. You can also put that towards owning a franchise that's non-owner occupied, that doesn't require you to be the operator. You could also use it to buy this and that. And 5 years from now, it's like, wow, look at my assets on my balance sheet.
Yeah.
I have a commercial property. I've got 3 apartment complexes. I have 9 single family homes, and I own 3 franchises. And collectively, they pay me more than my $400,000 a year as a realtor. Guess what? You don't want to be a realtor anymore? You don't have to, because you created that passive income life. Or you can keep both and double down and be like, no, I'm making $800,000 a year. Now I can increase my lifestyle. So I think people are just doing everything in the reverse order, which is they want all the fun stuff now, and they don't realize that you're screwing your entire destiny and future by having it now, instead of the strategy of, no, I'm going to not just play a short game, I'm going to play a long game too.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah. One of the biggest struggles, what we were taught, unfortunately, is you upgrade the lifestyle so that way your work ethic matches it, which is like, it's catastrophic.
Yeah.
When you look at it in that way.
Go out and lease the Mercedes at $2,000 a month, and you'll find a way to make the payments.
Yeah.
They're not wrong, by the way. They're not wrong, but that's so stressful. Yeah. There's so much anxiety. There's unnecessary risk. It's like, I'd rather be the most competent, smartest person that's driving the Honda Civic.
Yeah.
Maybe it's new. It doesn't look scratched and dented. It's not 1993. Maybe it's 3 or 4 years old, or maybe it's just a new lease, but my payment's $500 a month too. So there's a way to do things within reason. I don't think, though, that a person should try to build their business on the materialistic success of who they are. I think that I want to be wanted for my intellect. I want to be wanted for my cleverness, my wisdom, and my track record. Right now, if you guys took everything away from me and I had to start from scratch, do you know why I'm going to be a millionaire overnight again? Take my social media accounts, take it all away. Not only do I have a blueprint, not only do I have confidence, but the most important thing I have is a track record. When I go find someone, if I have to build wealth all over again, it's really simple. I'm going to open up my cell phone. I'm going to invite anyone who's not investing in real estate with me that I think meets my avatar. They've been Dave Ramseyites, 401kers, IRAers, super conservative, paying off their house mindset people. I'm going to put all of them in a room, and I can say, hey guys, I've transacted $2 billion worth of real estate, and I'm selecting my next 5 partners to buy real estate with. By the way, you got to give me 20 grand just to have the right to invest with me up front, and then I'll do all the work and buy real estate with you. 5 people say yes. I just put it $100,000 in my pocket in one evening. Yeah. And now I have all of their capital to go buy a bunch of homes and rebuild wealth with. Yeah. Like, that's just one of a million strategies that I could use, but there's only one reason why I can do it. Even if I failed and I still have a track record, that track record is what I can leverage for instant money.
Yeah. Brian Tracy always says that your most valuable non-tangible asset is your earning potential. Your most scarce resource is your time. So you're exactly right with that, which is awesome. Now, one question for you in this, you said it earlier, you had a mentor who lost everything twice. With the market changing now, and some people aren't talking about it, it's almost like there's an ego in the marketplace where it's like taboo to talk about something changing in the marketplace. How are you going to hedge against that, or be recession proof or bulletproof in that aspect?
2008, everyone, the market, the tabloids and the markets and the headlines, everyone said it's the worst time to be in real estate. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. Tens of thousands of homes, subprime mortgages just went back to the banks, and the banks are not in the business of real estate. They're going to liquidate and fire sell these things. So I went into the markets that took the deepest topple, Vegas, Arizona, Florida, and I was buying that $300,000 or $400,000 house for $100 grand on the auction step. And I understood people were so nervous. I'm like, why are you so stupid? Real estate it doesn't take genius. Like, it's not rocket science. You understand what supply and demand is. Yeah. People are having sex. They're making babies. People think America's great. They're migrating here. So when people go up, we need houses. So I get that we have a surplus of too many homes, but you understand that every day babies are being made. So you just wait enough years, and all of a sudden we're going to be in the opposite scenario. So I'm going to go buy all of this excess inventory for nothing. I'm going to rent it out and be like making $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 a month on rentals. Because, by the way, people always think when there's a crash that it also means that, like, the rental demand goes away. We don't lose humans when the market goes down. There's not a genocide. People don't die. They still need to live. If they can't own, they're going to rent. Yep. So I'm going to buy all the homes. I'm going to rent them all out. Guess what happened 5 years later? Me and my investors made $100 million. Why? Because that $400,000 home that had gone down to 100 was now back up to $250,000 to $320,000. So fast forward to where we're at today. we're seeing, for completely different reasons, very similar dynamics. Is the worst time to invest in real estate. No one should touch it. Don't buy it. There's so much uncertainty. The Fed has raised the rates. It's 7.1% on investment properties. You can't positive ROI on that. You can't positive cash flow. Not true, by the way. And I look at all of that. And I'm like, you guys don't get it. Like, we are missing 6.5 million homes in this country. We have the largest disparity historically we've ever experienced between supply and demand. Watch this. You guys take note of this. I promise this will happen. Before we get a new president, the current president has to look good. There's not many things that Biden can do to look good. There's only one thing: lower rates. Yeah. And I promise you, the moment rates go down, real estate that's been holding steady, people don't get it. It's building all of this energy. And the moment they drop rates, it is going to freaking go through the roof. It's going to be nightmare prices. It's going to be so unaffordable, and everyone's going to transact it. So I'm buying as much real estate as I possibly can. Now, to hedge my bet, I buy single family homes in the top 5 markets below what the median should be, not what the median is. Right now, the median's $411,000, $413,000. That's not right. The median should be around $310,000. Before the market spiked, we've seen a 65-year average of an appreciation increase nationwide of 4.68%. So if you say long-term track record, what do we got to rebalance to? The market is $100,000 overpriced right now. So I am buying real estate not at 400,000 and not at 300. I buy 20%, 30% below what the median should be, which means that I'm buying homes right now in the top 5 markets between 220 and 250. That's my hedge. Because when the market comes down, $1 million house in a crash like 08 became worth $500,000. A $500,000 home became worth 300. A $300,000 home became worth 220. A $220,000 home became worth 190. A $190,000 home became worth 180. Yeah. I'm buying in a price range that has so much insulation. And then you have to remember, we have 6.5 million missing homes. Some of that is faux pent-up demand from a workforce that thinks that they want to work at home. For me, I'm going to basically buy the most attractive entry-level real estate. And I fully expect when the rates, I'm buying every day right now, guys. Yeah. When those rates drop, I think that we are going to see over 2 or 3 years, the market's going to pump up another $100,000 at that price range I'm buying in. So every 10 homes I buy, 3 years later, insta millionaire. Yep. Yeah. That's why I'm buying as much as I possibly can right now.
That's insane. That's actually a pretty smart thought process to go through when you're breaking that down like that.
And what are you buying? Primarily single family?
Let me answer that one specifically. People are like, Kris Krohn. That dude is doing big multifamily. Vina Jetty, multifamily. Pace Morby is doing some of that. He's doing creative financing. The dude gets killer terms. Everyone has a different opinion on strategy. And I'm going to correct one thing right now that I think a lot of people misperceive. When you are a new investor, you start with single family homes because the entry point is easiest. The down payments are the smallest they're ever going to be, barring maybe a condo or townhome. So single family is small. There's this weird assumption that when you start succeeding and your portfolio gets big enough, that it's hard to scale. So what you're supposed to do is roll it all up and put it into like multifamily. And so a lot of people are like, well, single family is kind of like the entry level game. And then when you get into, 30 unit apartments and 300 units, you've made it. And eventually commercial buildings and skyscrapers. So you're supposed to play the bigger, better game, which means I'm going to trade less for something bigger. I don't believe in that. Because remember, I only believe in one thing: ROI.
Yeah.
And so every time someone shows me, Kris, you have 40 single family homes, look how much easier it would be to manage 40 doors in an apartment complex. Like, why don't you do that? That would be easier. And I say, one reason: why would you want my money to perform at a lower rate? Oh, I get it. You think that it's hard to scale single family. Well, everyone has to make themselves unique for something. What am I unique for? I figured out how to scale single family. Yeah. And I'm really, really good at it. So I decided that I was going to niche down and make myself, John Lee Dumas talks about the power of niching down until you have no competitors. I don't have a competitor. No one is doing what I'm doing. So one, that's a huge market advantage. But more importantly, the reason why it was worth figuring out how to scale that, by the way, not easy, but the reason why it was worthwhile is because now no one can touch my ROIs. People have all these real estate syndicated deals, and then all I have to do is show them my performance, and they're like, oh, we can't touch your ROI. I'm like, that's why it was worth scaling.
Yeah.
What's your strategy with the single family homes? I know you said the top 5 markets. Are you implementing like a BRRRR? Are you looking for distressed properties and going through with the BRRRR?
Mm-mm.
What is it?
No, distressed properties is a game I like to play for wholesaling.
Mm.
But for buy and hold, I like to have the newest and the nicest properties in the right part of town as possible. So, where I buy in Florida or Alabama or Tennessee, I'm generally buying homes in some of the fresher markets like Florida. I'm buying almost brand new exclusively all of the time.
Mm.
And, am I getting sometimes a deal like 20 or 30,000 below market? Yeah. But that game for me is scalable in the 17 strategies that I use to acquire them because my decision is going to be made on ROI.
Yeah.
And so ROI is all I care about. Now you're like, but Kris, what if you did some wholesale methodology and found a deeply distressed property and got it like 100,000 below market, and instead of flipping it or wholesaling it, like kept it? Like, why don't you do that? Well, I'm like, well, first of all, when you take the financing charges into account, when you consider the 20, 30, 50,000 that you have to put into it, and it's going to be permanent carry, and you start running the math on it, you do step into more equity, but it is not scalable,
Mm.
and your ROI goes down. So I've got strong feelings on that game because scalability and ROI trump a lot of other games that people would like to play.
Your niche is so unique to the point where if there is a density, like a need for density, right? Where are they going to go for next? Like you saw in California and Washington, right? The AUDs, DADUs, the auxiliary dwelling units, like you're going to double or triple the value of that piece of land instantly. You can't do that with a
Yes.
building. So that's a very smart niche to be in overall.
Yeah.
What are some things that you would want to leave the audience with?
Well, a couple of things. There might be some people experiencing me for the first time and don't know where to follow me. And I do have a link with either some free tickets to one of my live events. They're very, very, very life-changing because they're 50% mindset and 50% wealth strategies. This is really, I think, where rubber hits the road and people really get a takeaway from me how to really 10x their productivity. Like, how do I really grow my income?
Yeah.
How do I grow my investments? And so I've got a couple of free tickets to that. I also have some other, free giveaways that I've got, and it's on freewealthgift.com/light. And so if anyone wants to go to freewealthgift.com/light, they can just learn how to connect with me and get some of my freebies that I like to put in the marketplace. And that's where someone can go and basically connect with me and learn how to play, I think, a deeper level game. So I want to leave that with everyone.
Thank you.
But the only other thing, John and Kiro, that I would want to leave, this amazing base of realtors, is really contemplate what the long game is that you're looking at. I spent 5 years not owning a single luxury item. And I put everything into investing. And then 5 years later, I moved into a custom built 10,000 square foot mansion on the golf course right outside of Sundance. And for the next 5 years, I was all lifestyle and spending. And I had spent 5 years saving and 5 years spending. And when it was all done, I remember I got to the point where I looked at my whole history and I just said, what's been good, what's been smart, what's been dumb. And the first 5 years was so smart because I didn't care to own nice things. Everything was used and I went without, and I did it by strategy, and it felt good. The next 5 years, though, I'll tell you something. I got so addicted to spending that it's like I wasn't saving as much as I could. I wasn't investing as much as I could. And it was a Herculean effort for me to pull back to value investing again. So I would just tell everyone here, pause, look at the long game and ask, what do I need to change today to make sure that I am prioritizing the long game as opposed to just the blingy short game?
I love that. That's so important. One of our military buddies told us that when they used to go to like strategies for war, they would say before they'd go occupy another country, they would have to get the logistics down first before they had the tactics defeating the enemy. Because if they can't allocate water or get food delivered or be safe, then they die even if they had the best tactics. So the logistics is the most important thing. Amateurs focus on tactics. So that's right on the money what you just said there. So that's awesome.
And Kris, you have an event coming up. I think it's on your birthday, the wholesaling event.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to be teaching 3 strategies, but especially how simple wholesaling can be for people. And it's on September 28th. And on my social media, you can find the link in bio, pretty easy for it. We're probably going to have 30,000 people there. So it's going to be a little bit of a birthday bash. Probably going to donate a ton of proceeds to charity. But yeah, for my birthday, I always love to give people gifts. I've been doing that for the last decade. And so I'm just going to spend a couple hours with everyone, and I'm going to teach them my 3 favorite real estate strategies that require no cash for making a lot of money.
Awesome. And if anybody wants to connect with you, collaborate with you, or just reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do so?
I just look up Kris Krohn and just make sure you spell it the right way. Yeah.
And Kris has a wicked YouTube channel. So if you're ever curious to learn little things, Kris knows how to make it into an entertaining edutainment kind of thing. So thank you for having that platform, man.
I appreciate that. Please go to YouTube and subscribe, because I'm at like
almost
970,000 subs, and those last 30,000, I'm like, come on, people, let's go.
You'll get there soon enough.
We feel your pain, but on a much, much smaller level.
Yeah, we're at 950.
I get you.
Pushing.
Well, awesome, man. Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate you, brother.
John, Kiro, appreciate you guys. Thank you for what you're doing.